Before you hear a single name, before you see a single document, understand this. The Epstein Files are not just paperwork. They are the shadow of a system that failed so completely that it allowed one man to operate in plain sight for decades, protected by wealth, power, silence, and fear. If that doesn't unsettle you, it should, because the Epstein Files represent thousands of pages of court records, sealed exhibits, sworn depositions, flight logs, financial documents, photographs, emails, plea agreements, and survivor testimonies that together reveal not a simple crime, but an ecosystem of exploitation that spanned continents and reached into the highest levels of society. Jeffrey Epstein was not a household name until his arrest. Yet long before that, he was a regular presence among presidents, princes, billionaires, scientists, and celebrities. A man with no clear academic credentials or transparent business success somehow amassed immense wealth and influence, owning private jets, private islands, and multiple mansions, while cultivating an image as a financier and philanthropist. The Epstein Files trace this contradiction back to the beginning, showing how Epstein used money, connections, and secrecy to build a network that allegedly recruited, groomed, trafficked, and abused underage girls while insulating himself from consequences. The earliest public cracks appeared in 2005 when Palm Beach police began investigating reports that a teenage girl had been paid for sexual acts at Epstein's Florida mansion. That investigation quickly uncovered dozens of alleged victims, many of them minors, whose stories followed eerily similar patterns of recruitment, payment, normalization, and intimidation. Yet despite the volume of evidence, the case collapsed into one of the most controversial plea deals in modern legal history. In 2008, Epstein secured a non-prosecution agreement that allowed him to avoid federal charges, serve minimal jail time with work release, and walk free most days. Even more disturbing, the deal granted immunity that may have shielded unnamed co-conspirators. This agreement, preserved within the Epstein Files through internal correspondence and court challenges, stands as one of the clearest examples of how power bends justice. Buried within these files are emails showing prosecutors negotiating behind closed doors, victims kept uninformed, deadlines missed, and legal rights ignored. All of this happened while Epstein continued to live as a free man. Years later, a federal judge ruled that the government violated the law in how it handled the case. Yet still, no new criminal accountability followed. As years passed, Epstein's name faded from headlines, but the abuse did not stop. When investigative journalism resurfaced the story in 2015, it reopened a floodgate of civil lawsuits, most notably those involving Virginia Giuffre and Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's closest associate. It is within these civil cases that many of the most infamous Epstein files were created. Sealed depositions where witnesses named powerful individuals described private flights, island visits, and social gatherings that blurred the line between elite networking and criminal opportunity. These documents remained sealed for years, fueling speculation and conspiracy until courts began ordering them unsealed. What emerged was not a definitive client list, but something far more unsettling, a map of proximity to Epstein's world. Names appeared not as convictions, but as evidence of access, association, and silence, a reminder that influence does not require guilt to create harm, and that proximity alone can enable abuse. Among the most chilling artifacts in the Epstein files are the flight logs from Epstein's private jets. These meticulous records list who flew, when, and where, corroborated by pilots and staff, documenting repeated trips to Epstein's private island and international destinations. On their own, the logs prove movement, not crimes. But when aligned with survivor testimony, timelines begin to overlap in ways that are impossible to ignore. Financial records within the files expose a labyrinth of shell companies, trusts, and offshore accounts, suggesting a deliberate effort to obscure money flows and control information. These records raise unresolved questions about whether Epstein was merely a predator or a facilitator, within a larger system of leverage, influence, or blackmail. While these theories remain unproven, they persist because the documented facts leave so many gaps where transparency should exist. The Epstein Files also contain inventories of materials seized from Epstein's properties after his 2019 arrest. Hard drives, CDs labeled with names, photographs, and contact lists were cataloged as evidence investigators deemed relevant. Yet much of this material remains unseen by the public, locked behind evidentiary rules and sealed proceedings. When Epstein was arrested again in 2019 on federal sex trafficking charges, many believed accountability had finally arrived. That hope ended abruptly when he was found dead in his jail cell, officially ruled a suicide. His death transformed the Epstein Files from evidence in an upcoming trial into the primary source of truth for a case that would never reach a jury. Regardless of official conclusions, the circumstances intensified public distrust and cemented the belief that the full story would never be told in court. After Epstein's death, attention shifted to Ghislaine Maxwell. Her 2021 conviction confirmed what survivors had long said: Epstein did not act alone. Yet even that verdict left a vacuum. While Maxwell was sentenced, no broader network was dismantled, no sweeping prosecutions followed, and the Epstein Files continued to grow not through justice, but through document releases, redactions, and fragments of disclosure. When courts ordered additional documents unsealed in 2024, public reaction exploded. Names circulated online stripped of context, conflated with guilt, and weaponized for outrage. Yet the documents themselves repeatedly emphasized that allegations are not proof. The true significance of these releases was never about confirming individual crimes, but about exposing the scale of access, normalization, and institutional failure that allowed Epstein to operate untouched for so long. Survivor testimonies within the Epstein Files remain the most harrowing element. Detailed accounts of grooming, manipulation, coercion, and fear describe how young girls were pulled into a world where exploitation was disguised as opportunity. Resistance was discouraged, and speaking out carried consequences. These voices, often overshadowed by debates over famous names, are the moral core of the files and the reason they matter beyond spectacle. Ultimately, the Epstein Files are not a conclusion. They are an indictment of a system, revealing how wealth delays justice, how secrecy protects predators, and how institutions fail when accountability threatens power. This story refuses to die because it is unresolved, fragmented, and incomplete, leaving the public with documents instead of verdicts and questions instead of answers. If you want more deep investigations into stories powerful people would rather you forget, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay with us, because this is not the end of the story. It's the evidence left behind.